and welcome to episode 2 of the Beyond Fear podcast. I'm Jen Coppock, and today I'll be looking at naggy knees, looking at the biomechanical and structural issues that go on with the knee. If that's gone through one ear out the other, don't worry, it'll all be explained. It's aimed at runners who are experiencing knee pain whilst running, or after running, or before running. It's also aimed at anyone who's a bit on the heavier side than they want to be. So it might be experiencing knee pain, possibly on a weight loss journey, looking at what the causes of the knee pain is, what to do about it, so how to improve the situation, how to improve things for your knee. If you're listening on Spotify, this might be a little bit difficult, don't have any visuals, but there's three bones in your knee joint, which are your femur, which is your big bone at the top of your thigh bone, your tibia, which is the shin bone at the bottom, and you've also got the patella, which is a little tiny bone connected with ligaments that it's basically your kneecap. So you've got these two bones where they meet, and the patella sits on top. So that's it, 3 bones. You do have ligaments, and what ligaments do are a ligament will attach bone to bone. So they're kind of like the things keeping the bone structure there, keeping it where it's supposed to be. You then have your muscles. Now, muscles in the knee, there aren't any. Okay, so the main muscles that control the knee are above the knee and below the knee. So typically you're looking at your quads. There's 4 muscles, quad, 4. Your hamstrings, which are at the back. You've also got your calf muscles underneath the soleus gastrocnemius. There's just 2 muscles, but calf muscle, there's actually 2. You've also got muscles at the front, but we don't really need to talk about those. They aren't generally the ones that cause any problems. So the muscles join the knee with tendons. So a muscle can't attach to bone. A muscle has to attach to a tendon, and the tendon attaches to the bone. So a tendon is like special glue for muscles that attach to your bone. The only extra thing inside the knee, other than those that you kind of need to worry about, is your meniscus and cartilage, I guess. So cartilage covers the end of your bone, okay, where they kind of meet. So cartilage will cover that, so they kind of like smoothly move around each other, and don't cause any friction or any irritation, any pain. You've also got a meniscus, which is a C-shaped shock absorber between them. It's like a special pad, and that will stop them sort of bashing together. So when that becomes damaged, that can cause a little bit of issues as well. Knee pain affects your quality of life, let's be honest. If you're experiencing knee pain or have experienced it in the past, life becomes very crap very quickly, pardon the language. I've had knee pain. I severed my ACL back in 2015, at the end of 2015, and it took 4 months to eventually diagnose it, get the MRI, and I did have it reconstructed. You don't always have to have a reconstruction. I had mine reconstructed. I went to Lithuania. I couldn't afford private in the UK. It was too expensive. I went to Lithuania. Flights, hotel, surgery cost $2,000. You can claim a lot of that back. So if you do need surgery, seriously, they looked after me so well. Anyway, we're doing a plug here for surgery abroad again. This is like last week's was the same. I did it roller skating, and people kept saying to me, "Don't worry, you'll be back skating soon," or you might be finding it with running is all you want to do is everyone's, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be come back to the club soon." I just wanted to roll over in bed without being in agony. It was, you'd go to climb up the stairs and it'd just be a challenge and a chore. You'd step over one of the kids' toys and my knee would just give way and I'd be on the floor. It can affect your movement long term. So if you're not using your knee or your knee joint correctly, if you're not using it in the way that you would do normally because it hurts or because it just won't literally function that way, you start compensating with the other knee or the hip. The hip sort of dips and twists slightly to compensate. So your brain cheats for movements. So when you're trying to walk or run or whatever you're trying to do, if your knee isn't moving or whichever joint isn't moving correctly, your body will compensate. So you still are able to run, but it's not fully extending or it's not fully flexing. Something will be getting, your brain is very clever, your body is very clever. It will affect how you're doing things. So it helps it out and avoids the pain. But unless you work out what that is, you never actually fully address it, so you can't correct it. So looking at knee pain in runners, it's normally caused by overuse. So unless you've actually had what I refer to as a moment of impact, If you've been running, jumped over a tree root, landed a bit funny, had a really sharp pain in your knee as it's twisted, that would be a moment of impact. It's a moment of sort of really sharp pain, or your knee has done something a bit weird and crazy and it's sore pretty much instantly. You might have adrenaline impacting on it. That's a moment of impact. When you've had a moment of impact injury like that, it's potentially structural. It's most likely structural. So what that means is you could have broken one of the bones. In a knee, probably not, but you could have generally something structural going on. A bone might be broke. A ligament might be damaged. A tendon might be damaged. Sometimes muscles get damaged, but not generally around the knee because that's not where the muscles are. But yeah, so that's kind of it. If it's a structural, if that's happened and you jumped over a tree root, tripped, fell, whatever, and there's been a moment of impact, best thing to do is go to the GP, go to the doctors, get it looked at. It could just be something simple as, a slight tear in the tendon or ligament, and it's just going to take, and just to warn you, ligaments and tendons take a while. Ligaments in particular, they don't have much blood flow. They will take generally months to heal. So I know that's not what you want to hear, and I'm sorry. 6 to 9 months for my ACL was what I was given for recovery. A lot of people do run and carry on without having any reconstruction. I wanted reconstruction because I wanted to have my knee perfect, back how it was and how it should be. Even after that sort of damage, even with reconstruction, it's never going to be what it used to be. Not that necessarily is a bad thing, it's never going to be as good as it was. It's not that. I don't have an ACL anymore. I don't have a ligament there. I have muscle there instead. So the muscle tissue responds slightly differently. Am I going to tear it again? Probably not, because it's a different type of tissue. But it is going to affect my knee joint is structurally different than what it should be. So there are different rules when it starts getting tight and naggy. And, in the case of an ACL, I know I'm destroying you all here with, if it's structural, it's all doom and gloom. It's not. It could just be like meniscus damage is one of the key ones. People will have different pain and it'll be meniscus damage. And they'll sort of say, I've got meniscus damage. Should I run on it? Probably not. There's only some damage in some areas, some light damage in some areas of meniscus that you can run on and it will heal and look after itself. Meniscus damage generally would mean surgery, but everyone's different. Depending on your age, depending on what sort of activity you've been doing, it really does depend. But if it's structural, get a doctor it needs to be physically looked at. It needs physically looking at and potentially intervention of some sort. So get it looked at. If you've had an impact, if there's bruising, if there's swelling, if there's instability, get it looked at. So what about pain that just kind of, you're running along and pain just sort of sets in gradually and then it starts getting worse and then it starts getting worse and it changes to a sharp pain and then it moves to the other side of the knee, that kind of stuff. Or it only happens as you're going uphill, or it only happens when you're going downhill, or only happens as you're going on the flat. What's the cause of that? That tends to be biomechanical. So what is biomechanical? I don't know how to explain that really quickly in one sentence. But the biomechanics is when the issue is being caused by almost like the body as a whole. So it's not really the knee's problem. It is probably a problem with a few different muscles, or possibly every muscle in the body. Not every muscle, but nearly every muscle. So if you imagine you've got your knee, and I'd say the muscles above are sort of on the front or the quads. Now, they tend to all act as a pulley system. So as one pulls, the other one loosens. And as the other one starts to pull, they start to loosen. So it is a bit of a balance between strength and it is a balance between flexibility. You want to have the flexibility to perform the motion where the muscles can get long enough to allow the joint to move freely. But you also need the muscles to be strong enough to do their job and shrink and contract as necessary. So knee pain, a lot of it is the quads and the hamstrings being imbalanced. We do a lot of squats and a lot of work that strengthens the quads. We don't actually do a lot of work to strengthen the hamstrings. So the hamstrings do get neglected. I do think people are improving with switching on their glutes that commonly used phrase. So the butt cheek muscles, they do work with this as well. When there's an imbalance, so the quads are stronger than the hamstrings, that is going to pull on the patella. And a lot of knee pain is caused by the patella being pulled either to the side or misaligned, pulled a little bit too high, a little bit too low. And then when that's not quite in the right place, the knee can lock. It can press on nerves. It can cause pain. It can cause incorrect movements. So from a weight issue, so if you've been quite sedentary, you might be having knee pain, and you haven't been running, you haven't been doing these things. What can happen there is slightly different in that because the joint hasn't been used, it's more likely to break down, and some of the cartilage will be getting broken down and needs building back up. When cartilage breaks down, it basically can cause osteoarthritis, so arthritis in your knee. And when the cartilage breaks down, there can be bone structural changes, often referred to as bone spurs, which are like they always look really sharp on pictures, but they're like little scraggy, pointy bits on the bones, and then they sort of press against each other. There's a lot of different theories as to why that happens. Last I checked, there's been no real studies to prove what it is. It's quite commonly thought of by the medical community that the bone spurs happen to help stabilize the joint. So if your knee is bending in slightly, you might find that bone spurs happen to try and stabilize it and try and set it right. So that is a possibility. I don't have any concrete answers as to why that happens. The good thing is that the bone that gets built up can break down. So it's not the end of the world. So going back to the biomechanical issues within knees, there are different causes for poor biomechanics around the knee joint that could be affecting it. One is muscle imbalances. So as I say, if the hamstrings get stronger than if the quads get stronger than the hamstrings, or the other way around. Sometimes it does work the other way around. It can be flexibility. So I have a few little tightnesses in my left knee at the minute, which is the one that has the new funky muscular ACL. That one, if I go into hip flexion, so my leg is behind me, or my knee's behind me, and I bend my knee and I do it in motion quite quick, I get a very sharp pain and tightness with it. And that's because one of my quad muscles is too tight, or all my quad muscles are too tight. Who knows? I taught to, as a biomechanics coach, I can passively assess people. So I can lie you down and I can wiggle you around and I can say, this is what you can do, this is what you're struggling with, this is what we're going to do about it. I can't test myself. I do have tests that you can do on the floor, on the videos, on test videos. So if you're on my YouTube channel, check out the test videos. That'll help. But other than those, I can't help identify myself. But anyway, I know what movement it is because that's what triggers the pain. Doing a really deep quad stretch helps. So there's a certain quad stretch that really works because it targets that particular muscle within the quad group. So that is something that's helpful. So if you can locate with a biomechanics coach or by doing the test videos, you can sort of locate what the actual movement is that you're struggling with. You can often then find a stretch to fix it. It could be strength, it could be flexibility. Mine is flexibility. Quite often, especially runners, it's probably flexibility because let's face it, how many of us stand there and do our stretches after each run and hold each one for at least 30 to 60 seconds? I'm yet to see anyone at the club finish and hold a stretch for 30 to 60 seconds, then the next one, then the next one. Having an incorrect gait, so how your foot lands. So this is, again, runners, but it is also for just people in general. So if your foot is landing, when your foot lands, you want it to be nice and floppy. So you want to be in pronation, they call it. You want your foot to be nice and floppy. It will land probably out in front of you. It'll be nice and floppy and it'll absorb all the shock. As it passes underneath you, you want it to start to stiffen. And as it goes behind you, you want it to supinate. So supination is where it stiffens and you get the power to walk forwards or run forwards. If something's missed timing because of posture or because of foot strength or flexibility, generally foot strength, but who goes to the gym and works out their feet? Again, very, very, very few people. So if there's a little bit of weakness, you can end up your arches collapse. You might go to a shop for trainers and they say, oh, you are overpronating. Only a podiatrist can give you that diagnosis as well. So if the run shop comes around and says, yeah, you're an overpronator, take it with a pinch of salt. You only listen to a podiatrist. I can't even tell you what it is. I can say what's going on with your feet. If I can investigate it, I can explain it. But, you want your feet to pronate, you want your feet to supinate, and you want your feet, ideally, when they're underneath you, to be neutral. They're in between both. So gait issues tend to be mistiming of that pattern where it starts to stiffen either too soon, normally too late. So actually, as your foot's stiffening and you're getting the power, you're trying to push off on slightly a floppier foot. That tends to be it. Or you might be landing on quite a rigid, stiff foot if you tend to supinate a bit more. Poor posture is one. So if you tend to be quite slumped, that can elongate your back. It can affect how your hips, because your hips are immediately going to go into flexion. It's very difficult to stand up, have a slump, and not let your hips kind of roll forwards and affect your pelvic tilt. So that's going to impact on everything. So, even when you think about someone biomechanically, they're having a good day, they're upright and they're feeling, yeah, a really good day. And then something happens and they think, oh, and that immediately, that slump changes everything. You can't get as much oxygen into your lungs, and it just changes everything about how you're able to sit. And when we say good posture, it's not shoulders back, chest up, or sitting like this. There is no good posture, really. It is, you want to have different postures. So if you sit in one, or sit or stand in one posture for too long, generally, it's probably going to do more harm than good. You want to be able to sit and move in different positions all the time. And that's why, a lot of these seats, you sat down a lot where you have stand-up desks. So you could have a stand-up desk and have your computer there. Then you can lower it down slightly because that moves your shoulders. You have these seats that are adjustable and you can change the different heights and angles that you're sat at. It all helps. I like to have I have a corner sofa at home, so I like to sit on it, and then I'll sit there cross-legged. And then I'll sit there normally, and then I'll put my legs up, and then I'll sit in the double foresight position on one of the videos. If you've watched them, you'll know I'm on about. If you haven't, come take a look. They're good fun. Teach you about your body, what it can, and don't want to say can't do, what it struggles to do. As we lose movement in things, so let's say you can't bend your knee fully, if you don't address it and get it moving fully, it won't ever be able to move fully. You kind of do have to stress it like that, and it will compensate. So I'll say other things will take over. So therefore, if you're doing, I don't know, let's say if you're doing a compound movement like a squat where there's different joints moving, and your knees are struggling to bend, you're going to probably end up, somebody says, go a bit lower, you're probably going to start rolling, bending your back to try and get that a little bit lower. Your brain's trying to get lower, but it knows it can't, or it won't use your knees. So there's different compensations that happen without having a biomechanics coach look at you. And this isn't a plug, but unless someone physically sits there and looks at you and says, you can do this, you're struggling to do that, these are the movements you can do, it's quite a difficult one. And also, I think we've become a bit more blind to it. So even if you watch videos of yourself, it's quite difficult to, you might look at it and go, yeah, see, look, my knee's not bending. And it's like, yeah, but your knee's not bending because your hips are at the wrong angle. So, my squat, I can squat quite low, but my ankle flexion is actually what stops me. You might, if somebody looked at me and they sort of said, go a bit lower, you might look at it and think that, the hips aren't getting that much lower or the knees aren't bending enough. It's actually the ankles. If I pick up if I lift up my heels straight down, but then is it the ankle, or is the ankle just the end point and it's tightness throughout the entire chain at the back, and that's all where it crosses, because there's different chains of movement. But we'll be here all day. I'm just looking at my little clock and it's like, yes, Jenny, you're waffling too much already. So preventing biomechanical issues, warm up. Most biomechanical issues can be avoided with good warm-ups. Trying to correct the movement. If you know what movement it is that you're struggling with, watching in a mirror, making sure making sure that your legs going back and that your hips aren't dipping. Quite often the hips will dip or shift or lift or do something to help out so the knee doesn't have to do the work. It's being aware of what it is, watching everything else and making sure it's just that one movement you're doing. Nothing else is going on. Your shoulders are still, your hips are still, your ankles are still. But that movement, whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you're looking at, that movement that you're doing in your physiotherapy is just that section of your knee or whatever you've been given, because something else will likely be trying to kick in and help it instead. Making sure you're doing your flexibility. There are flexibility and strength tests on my YouTube channel. Making sure you stretch. And so especially runners, stretching after each run. Doesn't have to be done straight away. I mean, in an ideal world, you do it straight away. But stretching once a day for 10 minutes, like a 10-minute stretch session. I do again have one in the YouTube channels, 10-minute stretches for runners. That does cover what stretches you can do after a run. You need to hold each stretch for a good 30 to 60 seconds for the magic to happen. If you just stand there and literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're done, it's not long enough. You've not done anything really there for it. So having a really good stretch routine. You don't have to do it there in front of everyone at the club. You can go home and do it at home. Just don't go back to the club bragging, well, I never stretch. And they go, yeah, he never stretches. But absolutely amazing and never gets injured either. It's because you're stretching at home. Tell everyone, well, I'm not going to stretch right now. I'm going to do my stretches at home because I like to do it sitting down with a brew and do a proper good job of it because, injury prevention is important to me. No one likes being injured. It's not fun. So looking at knee biomechanics, if you're heavier than you would like, I've been there. Most of us have been there at some point. So in particular, if you're taking Ozempic or Mounjaro, one of the best things to do is to lose weight. It's going to take a lot of the pressure. And the reason for that is a lot of the pressure off. The reason for that is as the weight comes off, it's going to unsquash your knee. So if you imagine that the weight is squashing your knee down a little bit, it's going to release that off. So that's going to allow a lot better biomechanics to flow throughout the knee. It's also going to potentially help improve anything structurally that's going on. So if there are structural issues within the knee joint, it will help that. Again, by adding strength training. So I've got 10-minute videos on YouTube being uploaded at the minute. Level 1 does avoid any strength training with the knees to avoid overloading them to get you started. But level 2 will start adding in some knee work. One of the worst things you can do is to avoid using them altogether. You'll never sort of get back into it. It's going to be a hard journey. You don't want to aggravate them. Any pain, stop. A little bit of discomfort is fine, but pain generally is not a good thing. When you walk, the general rule of thumb is for every pound of excess weight you have, 3 to 4 pounds of pressure is being loaded onto the knee. And if you're going for a run, every pound brings 7 to 8 pounds worth of pressure on the knee. So knees get hammered by any excess weight, even just 1 to 2 pounds. You're talking of 2 pounds of excess weight can mean a stone of excess weight being pounded into the knee, sadly, when running. So losing it's a great start, and you're on that journey. So, you're watching this, you're on your journey, you're doing good. Making sure you avoid avoidance. So adding in some strength training, adding in flexibility, because as I say, so many of us are sat down so much, we lose flexibility. Our hips eventually start to weld into a sitting position. So they're like that. So, you've got your spine and then you're at a right angle. We are sort of getting stuck in that position. So by stretching and trying to straighten up, get your knee behind you in particular, as I say, your quads often need a really good stretch. So try and start finding ways of stretching them that is comfortable for you will make a huge difference. And just getting moving. So even just sitting there, having a wiggle, sitting on the chair and just straightening your leg out, lifting it up and straightening it out several times a day will help get it moving, and it will help actually improve the blood flow back to your heart, and it will help your lymphatic system, which is it's like your immune system. So how does lifting your legs improve your immune system? Well, in your immune system, where all the white blood cells are that help to combat disease, there are valves, and that system doesn't really have its own flow. So actually, when you move your muscles, the muscles press against it and push the fluid back through the valves, and it goes back into your cardiovascular system, which does have its own pumping system, courtesy of your beautiful heart. So actually just literally sitting there, wiggling your toes, moving your ankles, rolling things around, just trying to become a little bit more one of those really annoying moving people where you just fidget all day. Fidgeting is good. Also, being on the heavier side, it does impact on your systematic inflammation. So what's that? It's basically fluid throughout the body. And when the fluid sort of collects around the joints, it can cause arthritis and can cause the bone spurs, as mentioned. So then joints start to structurally change. So how do you improve that? Just trying to reduce inflammation. Losing weight will help. It can be dietary, so trying to reduce certain foods, carbohydrates that spike up your inflammation levels. We're all different. Can't just give you a list. It's X, Y, and Z. It'll be X, Y, and Z for Phil, and be X, Y, Z, and B and C, or for Doris. You know, it really depends. We're all going to be so different. You can't just go off a general list. You know, we're all unique and individual. It'd be pretty boring if there was just a set list that works for absolutely everybody and we all responded the same way. Life would be dull. Be easier, but it'd be dull. So improving your biomechanics when having weight challenges, you know, do what you can. Sit there, have a wiggle, try and just keep moving. Low impact exercises. So don't go, I'm going to go take up running. As I say, you're going to be loading up the knee, an aggravated knee. If you're watching this, it's probably aggravated. You're going to be loading it up with however many stone of pressure. You know, walking is load, but, you know, walk if you can. The uphill will improve your strength, so trying to walk up hills or upstairs would be good. Downhills can provide a bit more impact though, so just be wary of that. You know, if you're going to the, you know, if you feel quite happy going to the gym, have a look at the Stairmasters. They're pretty good at just going up and never having to go down. And gradual progression, so when something starts feeling a bit easy, increase it. See if you can go a little bit quicker or go a little bit steeper, or what weights can you start loading into this. So I don't know, maybe you go for a 5k walk every day and that's become quite fine and easy. Well, you could just go further. You could try and find something a bit more hillier, or you could start actually, you know what, I'm going to take a backpack and put a little bit of extra weight in and having that little bit of resistance training. I'm not a fan of weighted backpacks and stuff. They running with them more so than, because again, more load, more pressure. But it depends what's being done and why it's being done. So moving on from biomechanics over to structure again. So the main structural changes in knees tend to be arthritis, meniscus tears, and then ligament injuries. So they tend to be the main key things. So how do you know if you have one of those conditions? Generally, there was a moment of impact. Sometimes, however, they do go unnoticed. You might have forgotten the moment of impact. It might have been quite an insignificant event. It could be overuse that's brought it on, but less likely. You'll often get pain, and I'm talking not just achy pain. This is persistent or severe pain, and it will normally worsen with activity. There'll often be swelling or bruising or instability. It can be a mixture of those. And it can cause the knee to become stiff. You might be struggling to bend it or straighten it, which will obviously impact on being able to move it. So it's going to come up with knee's going to have a limited range of motion. And the only way to fix it is to get a medical plan from your practitioner, going to see your doctor. You know, quite often a structural issue will need some sort of intervention, but you need a specialist to take a look and to work it out for you. So, nerd alert. Study today, it's going to be in the session notes. It was done last year, 2023, with Xu, Shou, and Wang. The study found that GLP-1RAs, which is GLP-1 receptor agonists, they are semaglutide. So basically, these are weight loss drugs. Semaglutide, Wegovy or Ozempic, that's basically those. What he looked at was people taking the Ozempic and what impact it had on their osteoarthritis in their knees. So not only did the outcome of the study show that the drug contributed significantly to weight loss, it also had direct anti-inflammatory effects. So it reduced the swelling, it reduced the inflammation within the knee. And it also had positive impacts on cartilage metabolism. It slowed down degradation. So as the cartilage would normally break down, well, in this study, it showed that actually there were markers that not only had the slowing down slowed and stopped, it was actually showing markers that it was possibly regenerating or moving towards regeneration. So the study showed that it could potentially slow down the progression of knee osteoarthritis by reducing inflammation, protecting the cartilage, and obviously reducing the load that's being placed on it by reducing the weight of the people on the trial. So awesome study. Thought you'd like that one. So I know time's pressing on, so how to address knee pain through biomechanics. So assuming whatever's going on, if it's structural, you've gone to the doctors, that's all being sorted. What about biomechanics? What can be done through biomechanics? It's normally a combination of strength and flexibility. On the test videos on YouTube, it looks at predominantly hip strength and hip flexibility. Doing the test will work out which one it is, so you know whether to focus on stretching and flexibility or whether to focus on strength. You might want to focus on both. It could be a mixture of the two. The other tests, there's another 2 tests on the videos, which is the core test. So if your core's not quite strong enough to stabilize the spine and core and upper body, as well as lifting one of your legs, if you can't handle that load within the core, that's going to impact on how the knee is functioning and landing, because it's going to affect how the hips are. So core strength is a key one, particularly for the runners. And runners, I'd suggest having your feet checked. There is a gait test on the YouTube channel as well, which you can do all for free. And then the final test actually is balancing. So it's the thing that's overlooked all the time. Balance is very underrated. So if you've got poor balance, especially with running, you're hopping from one foot to the other and balancing each time. If you're always in a rush to get over back to the other side because your balance isn't where it needs to be, it doesn't matter how good your core strength is, how good your hip strength is, how good your flexibility is. If you've not improved your balance, you're gonna be struggling and always rushing the movement, and you're more likely to be at risk of an injury. So balance is really important. And it's something that's just overlooked. It's like, let's face it, it's not the most of the sexiest thing. Like, improve your balance today is not going to be as, it's just not a very interesting gimmick to try and sell somebody. I think we always think poor balance is related to old age, but, it's really not. I've seen plenty of people my age or even younger struggling with balance. So it's something well worth investing in, checking your balance. Takes like a minute to test, and it's good fun. You can progress it to loads of different crazy stuff and impress all your friends with how awesome your balancing is. And so I'll say the other thing, especially again with runners or even strength training, is regress. If you've got to a point where knee pain is kicking in, go back a step. If you're doing a training plan out now for a half marathon and you're on week 10 and you're in knots, go back to week 9 or 8, stay there, wait for your body to catch up. There's a lot of strengthening and stuff that's going on in the joint to support the movement and support the load. And if you just say, no, the training plan, the training plan was written by somebody making training plans for the general population. This would be what would be the ideal plan. Athletes, coaches have to intervene on that plan. So whether you have a coach or whether you're just going off the plan, you've got to get to a point where actually I've reached my limit here. My tissue here has reached its limit. Let's go back a week or 2, get it back, get it all hunky-dory. The worst thing you can do is push on. If you push on, it's probably just going to likely get worse, and you're going to end up having even longer time to recover and do nothing. So it's better to regress, take it back a couple of weeks, see how it is there. If that's fine, maybe move up the next week. If that stays fine, then maybe move up the next week. And just having that extra little bit of time going back makes the plan your plan, not just on the fridge plan. Anyone can print it off and get on with it, because, no one knows you and your body like you know you and your body. So, focusing on sustainable long-term strategies to improve the knee flexibility or strength, core strength, balance, weight loss, whatever it is, by focusing on a nice consistent effort in that area, whatever it is that's impacting, long-term strategies are always way forward. The worst thing you can do is just focus on, I'm going to stretch. Cool, did all my stretches for a week. It's all fine now, leave it. It probably needs ongoing stretching and work there. So committing to it, sticking with it. And then as your body gets older and as your body changes, we're all going to get older, hopefully. Only the lucky ones get to grow older. So as we get older and our bodies change, we're always on it. We're always on it and adapting rather than just assuming that we can still do something because we could do it when we were 16 or 18. Sadly, it doesn't work like that. So on to the Q&A. So there was only a couple of questions this week. Actually, Angie had said she's had bad knee pain for over a year. Since taking Mounjaro, it's improved immensely. So well done, Angie. That is awesome news. She says, I suppose it's less weight that's caused the improvements. Probably, yeah. So reduced load has probably improved it. Again, it could be the inflammation side of things. So if that bad knee is linked to inflammation, it could be that like in the nerd alert, the Mounjaro has had that effect in reducing the inflammation and improving the cartilage regeneration for you. So, improving the cartilage degradation. It hasn't actually been confirmed they can regenerate, but on the drug, but there were markers to show regeneration. So anyway, well done, Angie. Trisha has asked, what is the best exercise to get knees working again? She feels like her knees have took a beating from compensating during foot pain and surgery. She doesn't think she's got arthritis in, and the doctor probably won't give them injections. Injections aren't really ideal. They're a good band-aid, but they don't really ever solve the problem. You just kind of basically crack on what you're doing that was causing pain but not feeling the pain. So it never really solves it. So don't think you've got arthritis in them. Without having an x-ray, you're not going to really know anyway. But knee pain, you've had knees took a beating from foot pain and surgery compensation. So yeah, the knees have probably overcompensated from what's going on with your feet. I'd recommend looking at your gait. So there is a gait test on the YouTube channel. So testing and seeing how your feet are naturally, whether they're leaning towards being supinating or pronating. So kind of collapsed arches would be kind of your pronation, and high arches would be your supination. That's kind of how people describe them. It's kind of seeing where you are. I'd look at the gait with it being foot specific, but I'd also just do the biomechanics test. So looking at your hip flexion and your hip strength. And there's not just one exercise. So hips move in different ways. You've got flexion, extension, and rotation, internal and external rotation. You've also got abduction and adduction, but the test actually that I do kind of looks at those two on a whole anyway. And you can do it at home. It's free. You can do it at home. You just need a bit of space. Somebody asked me the other day, actually, they don't think they can even get into the position. If you're struggling to get into the position, treat it as a flexibility that, it's flexibility that you need to work on. And then come up with a stretch plan. I will be doing stretches in the videos as well for the different levels for the weight loss group. So I'll be doing different stretches depending on whether you can get up and down off the floor or whether you need to stand up and do it. So I will be doing different videos on those. This just took me a little bit longer to think about because I normally have my set stretch routine, and it's going to have to be a little bit different on these. But I still want you to all get great value out of it and be able to help resolve the problem. Great thing about flexibility is it gets sorted so quickly, just sticking with 10 minutes a day. If you've worked out its flexibility and you've worked out which areas you need to work on, 10 minutes of proper stretching, 30 to 60 seconds, good, 2 minutes. If you do it once or even twice a day, you're talking of like a week, 2 weeks for some people. It can take longer depending on age and different factors, but you're talking of, it can be quite a really small window before it's all solved. I say, when I decided to work out what's going on with my knee and found the stretch, I did a really good stretch session, 10 minutes. The next day, I thought I'll give it a move. Pain had gone. It's not going to have gone away completely. I need to stay on top of it. It's like stretching takes it back to where it needs to be, but you kind of need to take it further back. So it's like you want to take it beyond the problem. So you need that extra bit of wiggle room, and it's probably got tight for a reason. So it's making sure that your movement patterns or whatever's going on, that it doesn't regain that tightness. So having that little bit of extra time to give it a little bit of love and a little bit of care will do it world of wonders. So next episode, not entirely sure what's going to go on with the next episode. It is going to probably be something about my story. On Sunday this week, I have a full distance triathlon, which is it's often known as an Ironman. It isn't an Ironman. Ironman is the brand. I'm going to Outlaw Nottingham. It's going to be 140.6 miles, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a 26.2 mile run. If I complete it, it's probably going to be focused on a couch to Ironman kind of thing, a little bit about me, my story, what led me to it, and what I found. If I don't complete it, it will probably be about something to do with why I didn't complete it, and you know, my dodgy ear at the minute. That's the thing that's making me worry that I'll end up having to walk the entire marathon because I have a eustachian tube dysfunction at the minute, which I think is possibly linked to, I've been taking Mounjaro, and I think it's possibly linked to that. I've been having a really dry throat, dry mouth in the morning, and I think the dryness might be causing my ear to kind of close up or not close up or open. I don't know. I think there's funky stuff going on, so that is my big worry. But anyway, yeah, so I've lost all this weight for the Ironman, and now I can't run the lemon thing because but as long as I make it through the cut-offs, I'll be happy. I'm going for the cut-offs. I'm hoping to get through the cut-offs. Life will be good. So next week will probably be something, my story kind of related, hopefully a little bit fun and pass some time for you all. But yeah, it'll probably be all about me, sorry. It's, but I'm sure I'll have little things in there for you all that be of value. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one. Crack on.